Hey, welcome back to Weekend Rooster. In this episode, we take a look at some of the conveniences of doing motorcycle maintenance. For decades, Weekend Roosters have been getting on the ground and in strange positions, not only to change the oil, but other maintenance procedures. While there's certainly nothing wrong with that, over time, this can certainly be frustrating. Now, there are chances that you could use a motorcycle jack, and that is great for changing your tire, maybe raising the bike up a little bit, but it doesn't help you get to your oil. The QuickJack system not only has something for cars and trucks, but has an attachment for motorcycles and ATVs as well. Weight capacity is 1,000 pounds, 88 inches long, and 28 inches wide. These parts are powder coated. Most of the moving components are on the hand crank that's on the clamp assembly, so you just simply have to bolt it to the ramp. The clamp assembly does have rubber pads that are mounted on by screws instead of merely being glued. They are textured in nature to hold your tire in place. The holes that are on the clamp assembly are powder coated so you don't have paint that's blocking installation. You do get a bag of metal components that are for your installation or hardware. There's not very many. You will notice that the tire stop does have a wire pin lock. Also included is a steel support rod that has 2 washers and a nut that locks it into place. The ramp does have holes pre-drilled into it that make installation easy. Please note that the QuickJack system does require the base system for a car or truck that has the motorcycle attachment right on top of it. Since I'm already using this system for my car and truck, I thought it much easier to get the attachment than buy a standalone system just for my motorcycle. At this point, I'm going to use my motorcycle jack stand to hold up the ramp. This will make it much easier to bolt in the clamp assembly in this position. I'm going to start with the motorcycle stop clamp assembly that would be on my left hand side. The holes that are drilled make it much easier to apply the bolts and nuts. Now we're ready to move on to the hand crank assembly. This takes 4 nuts and bolts, simply leading you into our next installation part of the remaining clamp assembly. Please note that there are threaded holes that will accept 4 more bolts. You may want to take some time to line this up really well. If you rush through this and end up stripping those holes, you're going to have to take some time and go back to rethread them. Now we're ready to install the tire stop. Simply slide it into place. There is a wire lock pin that drops right in. Once you drop this in, you want to take a look on the underside of it and make sure that the pin hasn't been hyperextended and it's firmly locked on there so it doesn't come out accidentally. Now that the components are installed, it's time to test it out. Closing and opening it. A simple righty-tighty lefty-loosey action. In my case, my turning action had a little bit of resistance, so I did use some WD-40 to loosen it up a little bit. Probably would have been more beneficial to use some grease, but I would have had a hard time getting it in the pre-assembled hand crank. The last little bit of items we have on here is going to be the eye bolts. These are super important if you'd like to use your motorcycle straps to keep it from falling off of your stand. While you can take this system anywhere, it's important to have a smooth level surface. Make sure that the locking bars are facing on the outer edges. From here, we're simply going to take the sides and push them in together. It's a little bit heavy, but once you have the sides touching up, this will make a sure connection when you put your ramp over it. They are equipped with quick connect hoses that line either side. Please note that I do have some protective caps to keep the dirt and stuff out. They're easily come off, so make sure that you don't lose those. There is a power unit that has an upper and lower connection. It really doesn't matter which side you connect them up with. The system is equipped with a plug-in to the wall attachment, or I opted to go with a 12 volt so I can put my battery charger and take this anywhere. Now at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and line up my ramp so when I drop it down, it fits right over the connections. You may need to take a little bit of time just to kind of line it up because we do have a remaining steel bolt that we're going to put in place. Make sure that you have a washer for either side and that you don't lose the nut. Once you get it locked into place, you may have to take a few minutes just to kind of line it up and jiggle it in. and then simply come onto the other side and make sure that you have your other remaining washer, and you're going to lock that in place. Finally, we're ready to test this bad boy out. Now in my case, I happen to have a kickstand. If you don't, you might want to find an alternative stand to hold it in place while you do your hand crank if you're doing this by yourself. Once you have the tire secure, we're ready to move on to the motorcycle straps. This is the key, even if you have a level surface, to keep the bike from rocking back and forth, especially if you're going to be wrenching on it. Once it's secure, we're going to go ahead and raise it up to see if we can get some work done. Now, as mentioned before, it does have two heights that you can park it at. Since it's a hydraulic system, you should not rely on the hydraulic system to hold it in place. Use the locking rods to make sure that everything is secure. There are two stops that are visible on either side. You do have to make sure that the locking bars pass over the stops, and then you're going to reverse it back to lock them into place. Now in my case, the system was kind of new and it maybe needed a little bit of oil, so it didn't quite lock into place. So I had to manually go in there to make sure either side was locked in. Once you use this a few times, it should get into good working action. You can feel a bit more comfortable with it. Now that we're all set up, we can go ahead and go into things like changing your oil, your basic maintenance. They do have an option to buy a jack for it, or you can use your own jack that you already have. I appreciate you joining me in this episode. Now, I'm not sponsored by this particular product. I'm just trying to get some information out. Maybe it's going to help you stay on the trails, maybe get a little bit more maintenance done. If you got any show ideas you'd like to have covered on this channel, please put them in the comments below. If you like what we're doing here, we'll see you back next time.